You know what? This segment, it's gotten a lot of people's attention. A lot of people look at it superficially, and that's the way that the head superficial in charge wants them to look at it. Probably most people haven't delved a little deeper. We might go a little deeper. We might go all the way to the bone on this one. Chris Jericho versus the incomparable Action Andretti. So they do the deal where Chris Jericho says, I've lost to Claudio Castagnoli on a show, by the way, that nobody saw in the overall scheme of things, a Ring of Honor pay-per-view on a Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. That's where he did the job. And we brought that up. But now he says he's going to take out his aggravation in a tune-up match on a job guy, on a jobber. Now, we know that Chris Jericho wants to be the center of attention, right? And we know that Chris Jericho got 8 weeks of getting main events or feature matches against all kinds of alleged top guys, former Ring of Honor champions, where he got to win. And then we took him to task for losing on a show that nobody saw. So he doesn't want people to say that he's selfish or he doesn't want to do jobs. So he comes up with a brilliant idea. And by the way, it's not me saying this, but apparently it's already out on the internet that Jericho said he picked Action Andretti. This is his guy. He's seen this guy and said, oh my God, a star of the future.
Well, he can't wait to do something to talk about what he was doing.
He can't wait to do something and then talk about how good it was of him to do it. But he has a match with Action Andretti, and at first he's beating him up. And then Action gets a little offense, and he shuts him back down. And then, I'm not going to analyze the whole thing before I give you the framework. He even kicks out of Jericho's finish, the code breaker, going to a break, and gets the people chanting, let's go jobber. And then he puts him over. And a lot of people are going, well, this proves it, right? That Jericho's, he's a company man. He's for the team. Okay, let me explain, and then we'll talk about a couple of details in this. Instead of putting over a guy with potential to draw money in the top matches, whether it be, we've talked about before, Starks is working with MJF. Okay, now what about Hobbs? Or what about any other of a number of people? We said, well, so-and-so with the right, or if this was another company, you would pick a Braun Breaker or an Austin Theory. Somebody that you can see in the main events, drawing money, in the mix with the top talent down the road. This would be a shock way to introduce a guy like that. But instead, Jericho works it where he handpicks one of Santa's elves that nobody's ever heard of before. He works a match where he takes him lightly and then gets surprised by the guy and gets beat. And now everybody's talking about Chris Jericho and what a pro he is for doing this for this kid. Action Andretti's got a contract already. He's been announced as All Elite. But here's the thing. It was a great thing to get attention for Chris Jericho. It was a great 2 segments of television. The live crowd was going crazy, as they do whenever they see a chance for an unknown guy or an underneath guy or a underdog type of guy to beat up the pompous heel or to make him slip on a banana peel. People love that in any building, in any environment. So that part of it's going to get over. But there's a difference between bringing somebody in with the thought to immediately putting them on the main roster with a push and getting them over for the future, a top talent. There's a difference between doing it with that guy and doing it with a guy that's shorter than referee Aubrey. He can't weigh 185 pounds. Jericho's 5'10", had 3 or 4 inches on him. Can he talk? We don't know. We've never heard it. Can he sell? He got beat up some, but I didn't see any Ricky Morton level selling with the facials and the pain and or a steamboat type of thing. The kid's athletic. He did some flips. He didn't do them all well. Not only one reason probably was because he was nervous, but another reason is because Jericho was trying to do the flips with him to let him do his flips. And Jericho's 52 years old. Go back and watch Storm and Jericho when they were in their 20s and early 30s. They were gazelles. They could jump and they could fly and they had balance. Storm was better than Chris. But in its father time, it's not a goddamn shortcoming of his, but he couldn't flip, flop, and fly with all this guy's spinning shit like he could have 30 years ago, and he was trying. But the kid, he can do the same kind of stuff that every other guy on this fucking show can do. There was nothing to indicate that he's a main event talent that's being earmarked for a rocket push up the charts, so it wasn't that. He's a good athlete. He's small. He has probably limited experience. He's got limited upside right now and for the next several years. And unless he's still growing, probably for the rest of his life. But Jericho did this for attention. And he picked this kid because it would get over with the flippy fans, which is the ones that are more likely to fall for this because they have the most superficial knowledge of wrestling psychology. He picked the kid because they wouldn't take it seriously that Jericho got beat like if he did the same thing with Starks or Hobbs or Theory or Breaker or a legitimate upcoming talent. This kid's not even ready to be Daniel Garcia. But it got a lot of attention on Chris Jericho. And they basically, after he started surprising Jericho with all these things at the end, overlooking the fact that he'd already taken Jericho's finish, had the shit kicked out of him, but at the end he's 100%. They went for a spinning something that Jericho was supposed to catch him and do something, and it didn't work out, and Jericho went over on his head. And Action Andretti hit a running standing moonsault. 1, 2, 3. So the thing is, they didn't make a new star here. They got a great couple of segments in the building, and the attention goes to Jericho both on camera as relates to the storyline of him being flummoxed over his loss and lost again. And the attention goes to him on the internet because he was so charitable in finding this upcoming superstar and putting him over. But he put him over specifically because if he put this kid over, he'd have all the attention. Whereas if he put a real contender to be a main event player over at this stage of the game, that guy would get the attention. Have I articulated this to where you think most people have understood the underhanded nature of this swerve?
I guess so. I think so. I will say I enjoyed it, even though it went a little long. It was nice to see something like this on the show because the crowd was so into it. Naturally, and I'm sure you've seen this, and maybe I guess you addressed a lot of this, but just to compare contrast, the one example most people are pointing to because of how big it was and it was seconds and people still remember it.
Sean Waltman, before he was the 1, 2, 3 kid against Razor Ramon on Raw. Well, and I think we've talked about this here the past couple of months, not with this context of this happening, but they used Sean, I'm going to say a time or two before that as a job guy. So people had seen him, but at the same time, they had no idea this was going to happen. But the plan was from the start, the reason for it to happen, the reason for Sean Waltman to beat Razor Ramon and to become the 1, 2, 3 kid was because they intended to start using him full time on the main roster as the underdog, feisty young babyface kid, because they saw that in him and they saw that he was going to progress. And that's why he didn't. Are you mean to tell me? And now here's the thing. I don't know which one I want. Okay, if Action Andretti was going to be on TV nearly every week for the next however long and start getting a push and start winning matches and start and being used as a main roster talent, then maybe that was a plan and that this wasn't just a waste to get attention on Jericho. But then if they did that, it would mean we'd have to watch fucking Action Andretti every week. Because I remind you, Sean Waltman was painfully thin in those days, but he's 6 feet tall.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm not disagreeing with you because there's a reason why Jericho ran the next day to tell everyone the story about how he had picked this kid and decided to do this. Whether or not it helps Action Andretti, who we've only seen this one time, apparently he was on YouTube a few times a while back. From what we've seen, we really can't judge him too much, but Jericho absolutely did this so people could not say that he doesn't put anyone over. Look, I'll take anyone. I'm going to pick anyone here. I'll take him. And I'll put him over. I'll make him a star. That's what this is.
Well, and again, as I said, Sean Waltman was 6 feet tall. And yes, he was thin, but that was part of it. But he also, that was 1990, was it 4?
93.
3. Okay, he'd been in the business for, what was it, 5-6 years at that point at least. He started in Minneapolis. He and Jerry Lynn had that program for the independent promotion up there in the Twin Cities and had gotten some attention on an underground, on the sheet readers level. But he knew how to sell, and he had a unique style, and he had some oomph and some charisma as that underdog kid. And then he got older and grew up, got a little bigger, got a little tougher, and he was a heel and a blah, blah, blah. But there was something to him. There was a plan in place. It wasn't done for a shocking moment. It was done for a shocking moment to introduce a new full-time guy. And that does not compare to what happened here. And also, like I said, and he may be a good kid. I don't know how old he is. Like I said, he's probably not going to get a lot bigger. But right now, you could just tell he's doing the same shit that everybody else does in independent matches, running up and down the ropes and flipping and things, but he's not ready to even be Daniel Garcia in this environment. He's in way over his head. We'll probably never see him again on Dynamite. He'll probably be on Dark or Elevation now that he's signed.
Oh, no.
They got to do something with him.
No, I think they're going to have to use him on Dynamite for a while. Otherwise, it will be apparent what this is.
Well, then if they use him on Dynamite, it needs to be for Jericho to somehow obliterate him or throw Agent Orange or Napalm on him or something, and then some higher level babyface come to the rescue to get in a program with Jericho, because possibly Claudio or somebody, whatever the fuck, because we don't need to be seeing, this kid does not need to be seen being put over or just working every week on television. At this stage of his game, they will be convinced for the rest of their life that that's him, and he's too green for that. Because they've got guys that can do these flips better. So find somebody that brings something different and special. Charisma, personality, toughness, balls, seriousness. We got enough acrobats and cheerleaders. They all just blend in. Anyway,